I never imagined the person who used to braid my hair, sneak me cookies, and call me her forever best friend would one day stand across from me in court, suing me over a house our parents left behind. I held the court papers in my hand like they were dipped in poison. My sister, Jessica, the same girl who held my hand when we buried Dad just a year ago, had filed a petition lawsuit. She wanted to sell the house I was still living in, the only thing left of our childhood, for a price. No conversation. No warning. Just betrayal. Cold, calculated, and signed in blue ink. I called her in disbelief. She picked up and said, "Olivia, it's not personal. It's business. I have a family now." A family now? What the hell was I? Have you ever been stabbed? Not with a knife, but with silence, signatures, and someone you loved pretending you were nothing? Comment below if you've ever had your own blood treat you like a stranger. I'm Olivia, and this is my story. Jessica and I were only 2 years apart. Growing up in a sleepy suburb of Charleston, South Carolina, we were known as the Mitchell girls. Always together, always inseparable. Our parents, Margaret and David, were high school sweethearts. Dad was a civil engineer. Mom ran a little antique shop on Broad Street. And our childhood? It felt like something out of a photo album. Messy, loud, but soaked in love. Jessica was the older one, more confident, louder, always ready to speak up. I was quieter, more of a daydreamer. She would drag me out of my books and into the real world, roller skating in the driveway, building tree forts behind the garage, and choreographing dances to Britney Spears for talent shows we never entered. We shared a room until high school. 2 twin beds, 1 bookshelf, a closet that always had more of Jessica's clothes in it than mine. I didn't mind. She'd tease me, borrow my sweaters without asking, but then leave handwritten notes on my pillow saying things like, "I know I'm annoying, but I love you." Forever sisters, right? Jessica, age 13, bandaging my scraped knee after I fell from my bike. "Don't cry, Liv. You're tougher than most boys I know." She kissed my forehead and said, "You'll always have me. Always." That line used to feel sacred. When Dad got sick, stage 4 colon cancer, Jessica and I tag-teamed hospital runs. She'd bring him his favorite crosswords. I'd feed him soup. We were a team. Even in grief, we were linked. At Dad's funeral, when Mom collapsed on the pew mid-service, it was Jessica who held her up, and me who held Jessica. Afterward, we sat on the back porch of our family home, holding hands in silence as the sun dipped behind the trees. Jessica whispered, "We're the last line of defense now, Liv. It's you and me against the world." And for years, I believed her. Even when she got married to Ryan Carter, a finance guy from Chicago who never really fit in, I smiled through the unease. I walked down the aisle as her maid of honor. I helped her pick out her dress, laughed with her during her bridal shower, even stayed up late editing her wedding speech. We moved into adulthood like parallel trains, not always on the same track but always close enough to wave. She had her own life in Boston. I stayed back home in Charleston, helping Mom run the shop, then later managing it myself after she passed. I didn't have a husband or kids, but I had history. I had roots. And I had that old 2-story home with creaky floors and memories in every corner. Jessica would visit on holidays with Ryan. She'd laugh with me on the porch, wine glass in hand, looking at our old swing set and saying, "You really never left this place, huh?" I'd smile and say, "Someone had to keep the ghosts company." And she'd squeeze my hand, the same way she used to in church when we were little, as if to say, "You're not alone. I'm still here." That squeeze used to mean the world to me. But what I didn't realize back then is that some people keep you close not out of love, but out of calculation. After Mom passed, a quiet Sunday morning stroke that took her in her sleep, Jessica and I were shattered in completely different ways. I buried myself in memories, sorting through Mom's journals, her vintage brooches, the recipes she used to write in cursive on stained index cards. Jessica, on the other hand, was distant. She flew down for the funeral, gave a speech that made everyone cry, even me, but she flew back to Boston the next day. No extended stay. No cleanup. No estate talk. She said, Liv, you've always been better at handling these things. Let me know what you decide. At the time, I thought it was trust. Now, I wonder if it was something colder, like calculated detachment. The house, our house, technically passed to both of us. It was in both our names. But she never asked for anything. Never suggested selling. Never talked about splitting assets. So I stayed. Not because I needed to, but because that house was a living, breathing photo album of the life I had shared with everyone I loved. Dad's hand-drawn map of the neighborhood on the wall. Mom's teacup collection. Jessica's initials carved into the banister upstairs. And, of course, my memories. Of blanket forts and whispered secrets. Of matching Halloween costumes. Of rainy days watching VHS tapes, wrapped in the same blanket, like it was a shield from the world. It was more than a house. It was my past. My proof that we were once something good. I started converting the attic into a reading nook. Painted the back room yellow like Mom always wanted. Kept the garden going. I'd occasionally send Jessica pictures. Look at the hydrangeas. Remember how we used to bury our Barbies there for no reason? She'd reply with a thumbs up emoji. Sometimes, not even that. I brushed it off. She had kids now, twins, age 4. She was busy. She lived far. I didn't want to be that clingy sister who couldn't move on. So, I let her drift. What I didn't know is that during that drifting, she was talking to lawyers. Asking questions about value. About ownership. About options. What I didn't know is that the sister who once told me, "It's you and me against the world," was calculating how to take the one thing I had left and cash it in. I'd hear her voice in my head sometimes. The one from years ago, brushing my hair before a school dance. Liv, I got you. Always. And I would smile to myself, not realizing those words were now just echoes. Not promises. Not anymore. The first time I felt it, that quiet shift in Jessica's voice, was during a FaceTime call about Mom's old jewelry box. It was a rainy Wednesday. I had just come across the little carved wooden chest while organizing the guest room closet. I called Jessica to ask if she wanted anything from it before I donated some of the costume pieces. She smiled on the screen, adjusting her AirPods as one of her twins climbed over her shoulder. "Oh, that thing," she said, eyes darting away. "Honestly, Liv, just keep it or toss it. It's just junk. You know Mom never had anything real." That stung a little. I ran my fingers over the pearl necklace Mom wore every Easter and whispered to myself, it wasn't junk to her. But I let it go. It was just one moment. Until moments started piling up. "Olivia. Hey, do you remember if Mom had a safety deposit box? I found a key I don't recognize." Jessica. "Not sure. Check with the bank." Olivia. "I did. They said there was one under her name, but it was closed 3 months before she died."
"Do you know anything?"
Jessica. Scene. No reply. There was a silence growing between us. Not angry, not loud, but unsettling. Like walking into a familiar room and sensing something had been moved just slightly. Then came Thanksgiving. She and Ryan came down with the kids, the first time they'd visited since the funeral. I cleaned the house for days, made Mom's sweet potato casserole from scratch, even set the table with her favorite china. Jessica brought store-bought pie. And Ryan brought opinions. Ryan leaned back in Dad's old chair, arms crossed. This place must be worth, what, $500,000 now? Charleston real estate's no joke. I smiled awkwardly. I guess.
"I don't really think about it like that."
"It's home." Jessica stayed quiet. Just sipped her wine. Didn't even defend the place like she used to. Later that evening, I found her in Dad's study, going through the filing cabinet. I asked, "What are you looking for?" She looked up too fast. "Nothing. Just curious. Wondering if we had the title paperwork somewhere. For the house." That word.
"We."
It sounded fair, right? Logical. But something about it chilled me.
"We?"
This was the house I stayed in. Maintained.
Mowed.
Repainted.
Paid taxes on.
We didn't even share a damn utility bill. Still, I handed her the folder. What else could I do? She flipped through it slowly, then folded the papers back in and placed them on the desk. Her hand lingered on the edge. Then she said something I'd never forget. You know, I'm just thinking about the future. If something ever happened to you, I wouldn't even know what I'm entitled to. It was so casual, so flat. As if I were a character in a game she was mapping out in advance. I laughed nervously. Well, I hope I stick around long enough to make that conversation irrelevant. She didn't laugh back. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt something for the first time since childhood. Fear. Not of her temper, not of her words, but of her distance. The kind of fear you feel when you realize someone you love doesn't look at you the same anymore. Like I was no longer a person to her. Just a calculation. Weeks passed, and I tried to shake it off. Maybe I was being dramatic. Maybe I was projecting. Maybe I was just lonely and reading too much into a sister trying to understand legal stuff. But then things started happening, quiet things that I couldn't explain away. The first was the call from the insurance agent. A woman named Dana left me a voicemail. Hi Olivia, this is Dana from Carter & Sons Insurance. Just calling to confirm you received the quote your sister requested for a home coverage valuation on 14 Rivergate Lane. Give me a call back. Thanks. I froze. 14 Rivergate Lane was my address. I called Jessica. Did you contact an insurance firm about the house?
She paused. Oh.
Yeah. Ryan was just curious. We're updating our own home insurance and wondered what a house like ours would appraise at. But this isn't your house, Jess. Another pause. Technically, it's partially mine. Her voice wasn't angry. It was matter-of-fact, like she was correcting my grammar.
I didn't sleep that night.
I stayed up rereading our parents' will, the one they drafted together in 2009. It did leave the house to both of us. But it also said we were expected to decide jointly with compassion and familial care. Those words used to feel comforting. Now they felt naive. Who writes legal documents assuming family will be kind? I remember the time we got into a fight over a necklace, a simple plastic pendant Mom bought us. We both wanted it. Jessica grabbed it off my neck, so hard it left a red mark. I cried. Told Mom. Jessica denied it. Said I was being sensitive. Mom sided with her. Jessica would never hurt you on purpose, she'd said. I believed her. I believed them. That was the first time I swallowed my pain to keep peace. Now, decades later, the necklace was different. It was a house. A legacy. And the pain was no longer something I could swallow. Then came Christmas. She didn't come. No call. Just a text. Jessica. Too much going on with the boys. Flights are crazy. Maybe next year. She sent a photo, her family around a tree, matching pajamas. No, wish you were here. No warmth. I stared at it for hours. It wasn't just distance anymore.
It was detachment.
Deliberate. Cold. I sat in the study, surrounded by old ledgers, handwritten letters, tax documents, the smell of lavender still clinging to the air. And I started to wonder, what is the price of loyalty? What is the cost of trusting someone just because you shared a crib once? How long can you lie to yourself before the truth cracks you open? The red flags weren't waving anymore. They were on fire. But I still didn't see the worst coming. Because I still believed in the girl who used to hold my hand in the dark, swear she'd never let go. I didn't know that behind her silence, she was already tightening the knife. The letter came on a Tuesday morning. I was in the kitchen, steeping a cup of chamomile tea, when I saw the envelope, cream-colored, formal, with Carter Legal Group, embossed in gold on the upper left corner. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Junk mail. Or maybe something to do with Ryan's firm accidentally sent to me. But when I opened it, my heart stopped. Petition for partition and sale of inherited property, 14 Rivergate Lane. Filed by Jessica Mitchell Carter. Represented by Dean Sullivan ESQ. What is this? What is she doing? Is this real? Is she suing me? Olivia, quiet, stunned. Jess, I just got a letter from a lawyer. About the house. Jessica, calmly. Yeah, I was going to call you about that. Olivia, you filed a petition? You're trying to force a sale of the house. Jessica, flat. Liv, it's not personal. I have to think about my kids. That property is worth something. And I need my share. Olivia, you haven't paid a dime toward it. I've been living here. Taking care of it. Taking care of everything. Jessica. And that was your choice.
Click.
She hung up. That was the moment something broke in me. Not just emotionally, but spiritually. Like I was suddenly standing outside my own body, watching the house I loved turn into a legal battleground. The house that still smelled like Mom's cinnamon potpourri. That echoed with Dad's laughter during Sunday football. That held decades of us. Birthdays, funerals, pillow fights, fights over bathroom time. All reduced to an asset. The next week was a blur. I sat with our family lawyer, Mr. Landry, and watched his face stiffen as he flipped through the papers. She's requesting a forced sale through the county court, he said. She's citing non-cooperation and unfair occupancy. It'll be messy, Olivia. I laughed. Messy? I was being sued by my own sister for the house I had spent 15 years preserving. And she called it business. The first hearing was surreal. I sat on the left side of the courtroom. She sat on the right, beside her husband and a tall man in a gray suit, Dean Sullivan.
She didn't look at me.
Not once. I kept waiting for her to glance over, to soften, to show me that this wasn't real, that maybe she'd say, I'm sorry, let's talk outside. But no. She just sat there, flipping through papers like I was a stranger. Like we didn't share bunk beds or bury a dog together or cry over the same parents. The judge asked a few questions. Her lawyer spoke in clipped sentences about liquidating assets equitably. Mine tried to argue emotional significance, historic value, sole maintenance by one party.
It was all numbers to them.
But to me, it was grief. Grief in legal language. Grief in clauses and clauses and clauses. I came home that night and sat in the hallway for an hour not moving, just staring at the stairs. They still creaked where Jessica used to sneak up late after parties. The third step still had the nail Dad never fixed. And at the top of the landing, the dent in the wall from when we tried rollerblading inside the house. All of it now evidence.
History.
Soon to be appraised, judged, and sold. I walked into Jessica's old room. The wallpaper, faded lilac with stars, was still there. So were the glow-in-the-dark stickers she used to arrange into constellations. I sat on the bed, pulled out the bottom drawer, and found what I didn't know I needed. A note. From 2003. Folded, yellowing. Labeled. For Olivia. Open if you're ever sad. Inside, her teenage handwriting, all curved and curly. Liv. If we're ever far or fighting or grown up and weird, I hope you remember this. You're my person. Always. I don't care about money or houses or stuff. I just want you in my life. Your sister forever. Jess. I crumbled. Not just from the letter, but from the cruelty of memory. From the contrast between what we were and what we'd become. How do you go from pinky swears to lawsuits? The weeks dragged on. The court case crawled forward. Every time I saw her name on the papers, my stomach twisted. Jessica Mitchell Carter, plaintiff. Me, defendant. Defending what? My life? My memories? My version of our story? There was this moment during the second hearing when I truly knew she was gone. Not physically. Not in the way you grieve a lost life. But gone in a deeper, more horrifying way. Like someone hollowed out the sister I once knew and replaced her with a woman in a blazer who wouldn't even meet my eyes across a courtroom. Her lawyer was making an argument about liquid equity distribution. I was only half listening. My mind kept drifting to the swing set in the backyard, to Mom's chipped casserole dish still in the kitchen cabinet, to the upstairs hallway where we used to sneak out and eavesdrop on our parents. Then I heard something that snapped me back. Mr. Sullivan, Jessica's lawyer. Your Honor, my client believes the respondent has had unfair and exclusive access to the property for over 7 years, without compensation. We are also requesting back payment equivalent to rental value. I blinked.
What?
I turned to Mr. Landry, whispering, Is he saying I owe her rent? He nodded slowly. I looked at Jessica. Her eyes were glued to the front. No flicker. No apology. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. She wasn't just taking the house. She wanted to erase me from it, legally, financially, emotionally. She wanted to rewrite the story, to make it seem like I had stolen something from her. But I hadn't taken anything. I had held on. When Mom died, I held on. When she moved away, I held on. When the roof leaked, when the fence fell, when the taxes piled up, I held on. Not because I wanted ownership, but because I thought someone had to. I thought we were in this together, even from miles apart. The next night, I found myself sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by photo albums. There we were, the Mitchell sisters. At the zoo, holding balloons. On Halloween, dressed as princesses. In high school, grinning in front of lockers. Me in a cap and gown. Her in a wedding dress, gripping my hand. Every page felt like a betrayal now. Every smile felt like a lie. I turned it off. I couldn't bear to hear our voices like that. So innocent, so trusting. Like we didn't know how cruel life could become. Or how cruel we could become. 2 weeks later, the appraisal team came. 3 strangers, walking through my home with clipboards, measuring tape, and cameras. Appraiser, casual. We'll just need to inspect the attic and the basement too. Shouldn't take more than 45 minutes. I nodded silently. They stepped into rooms with stories I hadn't shared. They opened drawers that still smelled like Mom's perfume. They measured value in square feet, not in memories. And when they left, I sat on the porch and cried. Not loud, not angry, just the kind of cry that slips out when you're too tired to fight anymore. I knew I was losing, not because I was wrong, but because sometimes in life, the law doesn't care about what's right. It cares about signatures, about titles,
About math.
and my sister had numbers on her side. I got a call from my aunt in Pennsylvania. She'd heard from one of Jessica's Facebook posts that things were messy. She said, "Olivia, you girls need to remember what your parents would have wanted. A house isn't worth losing your sister over." I didn't say anything, because no one ever asks what it's worth to lose a sister over a house. The final mediation came. Jessica offered me a 30-day notice to vacate in exchange for a slightly larger settlement share. She'd already accepted a buyer's offer. Jessica, in a whisper at the conference table, "You can't live in the past, Liv. It's time to grow up." I turned to her, really looked at her. The girl I loved was gone, and in her place was someone I didn't recognize. That night, I stood in the kitchen, ran my fingers along the tile Dad laid by hand. I touched the wooden cabinets Mom polished every Sunday. I stepped out into the yard and saw the swing swaying gently in the wind. No kids, no laughter, just echoes. I whispered into the empty air, "I'm sorry, Mom. I tried." I never liked public scenes. I was always the quieter one. Jessica spoke up. "I smoothed things over. But some betrayals rip your silence out of you." I reached my breaking point on the day of the buyer's inspection. I wasn't legally allowed to stop them. Jessica's lawyer had arranged access. But as they walked through the home, poking, prodding, complimenting the quaint original touches, I snapped. I stood in front of the fireplace, blocking their view of the den. "Olivia, firm, trembling. I need you all to leave.
Now."
The realtor, a tall woman with a clipboard, looked startled. "Ma'am, we have an appointment." "Olivia."
"No."
"This isn't a showroom. This is my home." I turned and looked at Jessica, standing in the doorway in her tailored coat, arms crossed, looking bored. "I don't know who you are anymore," I said, loud enough for the entire room to hear. "But you are not my sister." She blinked, but stayed quiet. I kept going. It was like the words were pouring out of a dam I didn't even know I'd built. "Olivia," tears in voice. "You want your share?
Fine.
Take your money. Take the bricks. But don't stand here, in the house I cared for, the one our parents built, and pretend like you earned any of it. You want to pretend this was a business deal? Then I'll treat it like one. Let's talk about interest.
About time.
About who paid what. She opened her mouth, but I raised my hand. Do not interrupt me. I mowed this lawn in August heat while you were sipping sangria in Boston. I repaired this roof, cleaned out Mom's things when you couldn't even fly down. I stayed up nights paying off the water bill when you forgot we shared ownership. You think you've done something clever? You've turned a legacy into a transaction. And I hope the money's worth it. I really do. Olivia, kindness isn't weakness. But sometimes, even kind people have to raise their voice. I pulled a file folder from the coffee table, the one with every receipt, every tax bill, every maintenance record I'd saved for the past 10 years. Olivia, to buyer and agent.
Here.
Since you're so curious about this house, let me give you the real picture. Termite treatments, septic issues, storm repairs. I looked at Jessica again. I don't need this house to define me. But you clearly need to destroy it to feel powerful. Jessica, voice low. I'm just trying to be fair. Olivia.
No.
You're trying to win. And the only reason you think this is a victory is because you've forgotten what we lost.
She didn't respond.
Not because she didn't have words, but because I think for a second she realized she wasn't in control anymore. She turned away. The agent followed. The buyers muttered something about rescheduling. And I stood there, chest heaving, palms shaking, but taller than I had ever felt. I didn't stop the sale. I didn't save the house. But I saved myself. That night, I lit a candle in the kitchen. Mom always said the flame was a sign of peace, of cleansing. I placed the last letter Jessica ever wrote me in a fire-safe bowl and watched the edges curl. Not out of spite, out of mourning. The sister I loved was already gone. I wasn't burning paper. I was burning my silence. And I was ready to speak. The confrontation changed something in me. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for Jessica to explain herself. I wasn't hoping for reconciliation. I wasn't holding my breath for the sister who used to braid my hair and whisper secrets in the dark. I finally accepted she wasn't coming back. But the woman I was becoming? She was here.
Fierce.
Awake. Done being quiet. The next morning, I wrote her a letter. Not because I expected a response, but because some truths are too sacred to keep locked inside. Jessica, I used to believe loyalty meant silence. That staying soft meant staying good. But silence is how people like you win. And I'm done being quiet. You didn't just sue me. You erased the version of us that meant everything to me. You turned shared memories into leverage. You made love feel like a liability. I don't wish you harm. I just hope one day you realize what you traded for money. And I hope, with every fiber of my being, that your children never learn to calculate their family like currency. I forgive you, but I won't forget. Olivia. I mailed it. Not certified. No tracking. Just gone. Like so many things between us. The last day in court felt different. Her lawyer presented the final sale agreement. I signed the release documents. The judge thanked us for our cooperation. No one clapped. No one smiled. I walked past Jessica in the hallway.
We didn't speak.
She looked at the floor. I looked straight ahead. Outside, it was raining, heavy but not dramatic. Just steady. I stood under the courthouse awning and let the truth wash over me. This chapter was closed. Not because I wanted it to be, but because pretending there was anything left to salvage had become a kind of grief all its own. I moved out of 14, Rivergate Lane 3 weeks later. Packed each box with care. Labeled every memory with respect. Donated the swing set to a local church. Left a note in the attic for whoever came next. This house held a lot of love. I hope you add your own. On my last night, I walked room to room and whispered goodbye. To the window where Dad used to read. To the corner where Mom danced when she thought no one was watching. To the closet where Jessica and I once hid for hours during hide-and-seek, giggling till our sides hurt. I saved one last photo for myself. The two of us on the porch, age 8 and 10, arms linked like we ruled the world. I didn't cry. Not this time. Because I wasn't leaving in defeat. I was walking out with my dignity, my voice, and my freedom. There are people in this world who will trade your entire heart for their convenience. But there are also people, you, who will rise anyway. And no one can take that from you. Not even your sister. The hardest part wasn't losing the house. It was waking up in the weeks after, in my new apartment, surrounded by white walls and cardboard boxes, and realizing I didn't belong to anything anymore. No Sunday coffee in Mom's garden. No creaky third stair. No yellow kitchen tiles to remind me I'd survived another day. I used to tell myself that pain made us stronger. Now I realized it also makes us stranger to ourselves. The silence was different here. Not peaceful, just empty. I'd wake up, make coffee, and stare at the wall where our family calendar used to hang. Reach for a light switch that no longer existed. I still checked the mail like muscle memory, half expecting a card from Jessica, like she used to send me every spring. Happy new season, sis. That was before seasons stopped meaning anything. One time in middle school, Jessica had a panic attack before her solo in the school choir. I held her hand backstage and whispered, "If you walk off that stage, they'll forget you. If you sing, they'll remember your strength."
She sang.
She nailed it. She cried in my arms afterward. I was so proud of her. I wanted her to shine. Maybe that was always the difference between us. I loved her success. She envied mine. Word spread in our extended family. Some relatives called. Some didn't. Aunt Marlene texted me, "I love both of you girls, but I can't get involved." Uncle Jack messaged a single line. "She was wrong. I'm sorry you had to go through this." One of my cousins posted a cryptic quote on Facebook the day after the house sold. "Sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones you thought would always protect you." I knew it was for me, but I didn't comment. I didn't like. I was done fighting for validation. Loss is weird. It doesn't just arrive. It lingers, unpacks itself, finds new places to hurt you. I would walk past antique stores and see dishes like Mom's and feel my throat close. I'd hear a girl laugh in the park and swear it sounded like Jessica when she was 13. Grief has an echo, and even when the person is alive, that echo still haunts you. I found myself avoiding people, even friends, because how do you explain a wound like this? It wasn't death. It wasn't divorce. It was spiritual theft. Jessica didn't take my things. She took my anchor. A friend from work convinced me to go to a support circle for estranged siblings. I almost didn't walk in. But once I did, I heard stories that made mine feel less lonely. A woman whose sister turned their parents against her. A man whose brother emptied their joint account. A girl who hadn't spoken to her twin in 8 years. All of us, broken in the same language. One woman said something that stayed with me. When family leaves you, it's like being an orphan with ghosts still breathing.
I didn't speak that day.
But I listened. And for once, I didn't feel crazy. At night, I started journaling. Writing letters I'd never send. To Jessica.
To Mom.
To the version of me that still believed people who share your blood can't bleed you dry. I wrote to that girl. "You are not wrong for loving her. You are not weak for hoping. But you're done now. And that is strength." A month after I moved out, I stayed late at work finishing a report. The building was quiet. The fluorescent lights buzzed like a heartbeat in my ears. My coworker, Mariah, knocked lightly on my office door. "Want company for dinner?" I started to say no. But then, I didn't. We ended up in a small Greek restaurant, sharing hummus and talking about anything but family.
Art. Books.
Bad dates. At one point, I laughed, like really laughed, and it felt like swallowing sunlight after weeks of gray. That was the first night I realized I wasn't alone. I was just starting over. In the weeks that followed, I made space. Space for new routines. Space for silence that didn't hurt. Space for joy to peek back in. I framed a photo of my parents, the one from their 25th anniversary, Mom in her blue silk dress, Dad with his tie too loose, and placed it on my new bookshelf. They looked so in love. So proud. I whispered to them. I did my best. About 2 months after the final court date, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. But some part of me, still tender, still curious, answered. Jessica, quiet.
Hey.
It's me. I didn't say anything. Jessica. I just wanted to say I didn't mean for things to go the way they did. Still, I stayed quiet. Jessica, I thought if I didn't fight for my part, I'd regret it forever.
But now,
I think I lost more than I expected. There it was, the thing I'd begged for in 1,000 sleepless nights. But now that I had it, it didn't matter.
Olivia, softly.
I hope your kids never go through this. She paused. Jessica. Yeah, me too. We didn't talk again after that. No apology. No closure.
Just the echo of what might have been.
The fallout wasn't a bang. It was a slow burn, a steady fade. I lost some people along the way. Family who thought I was being dramatic. Friends who didn't know how to hold grief without a funeral.
But I also found people.
The woman from the support group who sent me a poem. Mariah, who showed up with soup the day my heater broke. My neighbor, an elderly man named Peter, who lent me his toolbox and called me kiddo like I was someone worth watching out for. One morning, I stood by my tiny apartment window and watched the sun rise over the city skyline. For the first time, I didn't miss the old view. I didn't feel like a displaced daughter. I felt unburdened, not healed, not yet, but clear. And in that clarity, I found something better than forgiveness.
Peace.
You don't need revenge to reclaim your worth. Sometimes, surviving the betrayal is the triumph. Sometimes, walking away from people you love because they no longer love you well is the most sacred kind of strength. Healing didn't come all at once. It came in layers, small, tender moments stacked on top of each other, like the slow stitching of a wound you thought would never close. It began with me buying a plant, a small snake plant in a ceramic pot. I named it Mercy, because that's what I was learning to give myself. I started therapy on a rainy Thursday. My therapist's name was Dr. Emily Hart. Kind eyes, cardigan sleeves pushed up, always with a pen in hand, but never in a rush. Our first session was quiet. She asked me, "What do you want from this space?" I said, "To stop hating myself for not saving her." She didn't rush to fix it. She just nodded and said, "That's a good place to begin." Week by week, I unpacked the grief, the perfectionism I inherited from my mother, the guilt I carried since the day Jessica walked away, the fear that I was always too much or not enough, never just right to stay loved. Dr. Hart once told me, "Some families teach us love. Others teach us what love is not." That line stayed with me. I began to see Jessica not as a villain, but as someone trapped in her own survival. That didn't excuse her, but it freed me. A flyer caught my eye one afternoon at the coffee shop. Sisters who read, "Women's Book Circle, all welcome." I almost crumpled it up. The word sisters stung like lemon on a paper cut. But something said, "Try again. Try different." I showed up. For women in a circle. 2 had sisters they adored. 1 had no family left. 1 was estranged, like me. We didn't talk about our pain every time. Sometimes we just laughed over plot holes and shared pastries. But I felt seen. Not for my story, just for existing. That felt holy. I started volunteering at a local community center, teaching English to newly arrived women from refugee backgrounds. At first, I thought I was helping them. But slowly, I realized they were saving me. They taught me how to say hope in 7 different languages. They taught me that starting over isn't weakness. It's courage in motion. One day, my cousin Beth reached out. She'd stayed neutral through the house ordeal. But she said, "I've missed you. I don't care about the property. I care about you." We met for lunch. Talked about our childhood, our parents, how life surprises you with its cruelty and its tenderness. She cried when I told her the whole story. And I cried because someone finally listened. 6 months after losing the house, I hosted my first dinner in my new apartment. Mariah brought roasted chicken. Beth brought flowers. Mr. Peter from next door brought his famous peach cobbler. We didn't have fine china or matching chairs. But we had laughter. We had warmth. We had love that asked for nothing in return. I looked around that room and thought, this is family too. Healing isn't forgetting. It's remembering differently. It's letting memory walk beside you instead of chasing you down. It's learning that scars don't mean broken, they mean you healed with evidence. One night, I pulled out a piece of paper and wrote something simple in my journal. I am not a victim. I am not just a survivor. I am a builder. A soft architect of my own future. I closed the journal, lit a candle named Home, and whispered to the flame, I am still here. If you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for sitting with me in my pain, my silence, and my truth. Because this story wasn't just about a house. It was about a fracture, the kind that doesn't bleed on the outside, but keeps you awake at 3 a.m., wondering what you could have done differently. If you've ever lost someone who is still alive, if you've ever begged someone to stay, and they left anyway, if you've ever questioned your own worth because someone made you feel disposable, then I want you to hear me now, clearly, and without apology. You are not the villain of your family's silence. You are not broken because you said enough. You are not heartless because you stopped reaching out. You are not cruel because you chose you. I used to think family was sacred, unchangeable, unshakable, the roots of who we are. But now I know, family is not who shares your blood. It's who shows up when the wind knocks you to your knees. It's who holds space for your tears without needing a reason. It's who protects your name even when you're not in the room. And sometimes, you get to build that family from the rubble. If you're in the middle of your heartbreak, if you're holding on to threads, if you're afraid that letting go means you've lost everything, please know, you haven't lost yourself. And the self you are today, tired, tender, still trying, is worthy of love so wide it doesn't demand proof. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved for your own peace? Have you been the quiet one who finally found their voice? Drop your story in the comments. You never know who it might comfort tonight. And if no one's told you this lately, I'm proud of you. You're not alone. You deserve to be chosen, without begging, explaining, or shrinking. If this story resonated with you, hit the like button. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that love should never be a battlefield. And if you've been silent for too long, maybe today is the day you speak your truth. Comment below. I choose peace, even if it costs my comfort. Let's build this space into something more than a comment section. Let's build a home for all the stories that didn't get closure, but still deserve to be heard. My name is Olivia Mitchell. I lost my sister, but I found myself, and I hoped you do too.